as well, so we'll need to, I believe, call out.
Okay.
Hi, guys. Sorry.
No, it's good to see you, man. Hope you're well.
Or hearing you.
I'm in transit, so
Cool.
Call the roll.
Let's call the roll. Peter, do you want to start? Just to approve the meeting
hello,
minutes?
Peter Gorey.
Approved?
Approve, yes, no?
Sorry, yay. I'm having a little trouble with background noise.
Cool.
Yay, approved. Thank you.
David?
David Smith seconded and approved.
Ed McManus, yes.
Margot Fenn, yes?
Garrett Kern, approved?
Brian Sheld, approved.
Barbara Nickerson, yes?
Mary Jones, yes.
Awesome. Motion approved. And moving on to the next order of business, the postcard data on the LPC website. I know Christine, we were talking about uploading information on the website and where we could put it, including of the marketing materials and the LPC data that we put together. Any updates from your conversations with Sarah? Were you able to get a hold of her?
Yes, I was able to get hold of Sarah. The town is going to be revamping their website, so the timing of this might be good. I think there are some placement limitations in terms of marketing materials, but in terms of the LCP webpage, we can, I will begin to upload that information.
Awesome.
As best I can. So
Okay.
I might need some guidance in terms of placement or how you would like to have the materials
Sure.
in order. So, but we are working on that currently.
Cool. So, from a timing perspective on the website, do we have to wait till that's finished updating, or do we get with you prior to kind of go through it all and upload it?
I think if we can, I think we can start to upload some of the information and just see how it goes.
Okay.
Just to start it, I think we should start it, and then if it needs to be tweaked, we can then edit
Cool.
the web pages as needed.
All right, Mary, do we want to set some time to do that with her?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
So we'll do that as kind of a takeaway at the end of the meeting, just to kind of set up some time, potentially next week.
That's
Is that cool?
agreeable. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'll follow up with both of you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any other conversation around the update on the website?
Just Gary, you and Mary have all you need from this group as a whole to.
Yep, we have the updated data. We've got the G drive that's been edited and organized by you, David. And then we've got,
It's unorganized again.
no, it's not bad. It's good. And then we've got the kind of marketing materials and some of the Chevron, but I don't know if there's been any updates to the plan there, Brian and Mary.
No, I think that was pretty well resolved in the update then. The only thing as far as marketing material I have left that also might be included on the website is the mock-up of that rack card.
Yes.
That I can distribute. If you want to take a look at it, there's a mock-up of it in the Google Drive. But even with marketing material in a non-digital format,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking in trying to capture even more. If you wouldn't mind just taking one and
I just want to
Same.
make, those look pretty good to me. I want to make sure you guys feel you have the okay to go ahead
Yeah,
with that
I
type
think,
of stuff.
yeah.
The G drive, I don't think should be on the website.
I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna extract the data that we wanna share, essentially all the stuff that we put together in the work efforts and the research and analytics stuff. And we're gonna make that public, for comment, and if anybody wants to drill down in the information, they can. But yeah, you're right, we're not gonna give a direct link to Joyce's personal G
No,
drive.
but anything that's been presented, like what Joyce presented at a recent select board meeting,
Yeah, that would
back
be
in the
good.
fall, anything
That
that
sort of
we.
thing would be
yes.
good.
Yeah, cool.
And David, I do
Even-
owe you something.
even this could maybe be a column in the Chronicle, even just by itself there, to even get more out, not just with digital. I understand that digital formats are cost-effective. However, we do need to try to get, I mean, I love that the numbers even went up as far as the respondents, and that's a great thing. But even trying to target those that just go about their everyday
Yeah.
lives, if you will, and hit those areas with these cards and with the, and again, in the Chronicle itself, just possibly in that format. I mean, I can change up anything that you'd like, if it would be approved and accepted to move forward. And we could also use a version of this in doing presentations with workshops to just really promote the education of what the committee is doing, what the objectives are, and actually even with the ideas of both of the most recent housing plans that just came out that we're reviewing too, and how they all work in unison, and just really using as much as we can to bring that attention out to the public.
It's a great
Not just for
call
the
out.
survey itself.
It's a great call out, Mary. Who, I believe somebody was running with, trying to reach out to the Chronicle. Ed, was that you?
Yeah.
Any,
I've had a chat, and
okay,
this, if I could give them this,
yeah.
it's always, okay, what do you got for me?
Yeah.
But this would be very helpful to get to them.
Okay, cool.
What it is.
And I actually like it's got the QR code on it, obviously, and it has the URL, so folks can actually manually plug that in if they need to.
And that's directly related to the website, because the URL is extended to have them go directly to the committee page.
Great.
However, in the placement, I understand that there's some areas that are restricted, but I'm thinking of the general population. If they could get it right when they hit the home page, so that the URL entry is not so cumbersome, and they know that they're gonna get something right when they hit the town of Harwich homepage, and then it can take them to the more detailed area. That might be easier for some people. It's just a suggestion.
Are we closing the survey right about the time they'd be getting this going in the Chronicle, though?
No.
I thought we were closing it in mid-March.
Well, how long is it gonna take the Chronicle to put it in, I would
Well,
think?
Not well, either, let's see what,
A week or two, I would think.
not this Thursday, but a week
Week.
from Thursday.
Still got a month.
It might give us some good last minute, or not last minute, but latter minute input.
Mhm.
Because 900 is not enough, so.
No, it's not.
Okay.
We did get, we did send it out to 290 people on newcomers clubs.
That's right.
And my-
And they even did it that it only went to Harwich people.
He mentioned it went to 290 folks of the Newcomers Club
Yeah.
Well,
recently.
it's gone out to several large groups in the last couple of weeks, so
Yeah. So
I'm sure it's hit multiple people, multiple times.
I feel good that we might have too many older adults responding.
Cool. Any other discussion or comments on that?
Well, my only point there, Ed, was that if they could be prepared that at some point in the next month, would they take off the survey, or would you change that QR code to just go to the website? Or are we changing the
That would,
website?
well, then we have to really think about printing costs, and I don't know what the restrictions are for that. And so,
Or let the QR code just go to the website, and that way you can pull the survey off the website, but leave this intact.
and I think that would give us a bigger bang for, usefulness. However, that would need to have the survey in a prominent area once the person hits the website, as far as clicking around to find it from the QR code. That's another thing I would caution, if you, in distribution and printing, I just would prefer if everyone would spot check and I tested the QR code, and it goes to the link, but just test it
Didn't need to
first,
get
or
it.
I can, as far as how things look or anything, and again, with that QR code and with the URL, just having that go to where it would be most effective, as well as I questioned if the verbiage on the bottom half in the light blue was acceptable for everyone, or any of the content, if there was any issue before distribution.
I just real-time QA'd the QR code. Looks good.
Yeah.
It's taking me right to it. So it works on an Android device.
He's responding to 10
Is it,
times to the survey.
Is it helpful to have the phone number? I guess I'm just drawing on my own experience of calling town hall. I'm just wondering, if that might get somebody lost and not to where they want to go.
My thought is, you're gonna have people that maybe just they default to calling. And if they try this, at least there's something right there, one-stop shopping, to get to someone that can possibly help. And I think that's just the town hall, isn't that the main number, I think, or is it the planning board?
I think that, do you know, Christine?
I think it's the planning, wait
Do
a
you see the
minute.
number that we have?
I
It's
think it's the planning board
7511.
number. I think that's what I took from the website.
That's the one that'll start with the building department and wiring inspector and some other kind of inspector. It's just
Let-
sort of a clunky,
Let me just make sure where I did pull it from. I want to say the planning board number. 4307, yes, that's it. That's what's on the website as the planning board number.
just try it and see what happens.
Who's managing that voicemail?
Well, the town
Now,
hall.
if Duncan Berry picks
Yeah.
up, you'll know what happened.
This is,
Call a phone number, get frustrated.
yeah, so this is the main directory. You can
Okay.
get routed to anybody. So,
Okay.
again, real-time problem solving. There we go.
So, my only question on the bottom color panel, it says planning board, local planning committee. We're not really the planning board.
Oh, that's interesting.
From what I understood, and I know not the planning board, but I believe it was a committee formed to support the planning board with the development of these documents. So I put it there as my thought process, but if we
I would-
believe we
I
just
would-
want to say local planning committee,
If we want to put a phone number on, why not have it be Christine's phone number? Because
I think it is.
Are you sure?
That's
I
a
mean,
deuce.
I mean, the other way,
I don't think I don't think we have much of a choice.
So,
We need to
I mean,
contact
we-
It'll
we
probably
call
get
it a
routed to you if
comprehensive
someone
planning
calls
committee.
in. It's
That
the
was
main
reason.
directory. They're probably gonna go to the planning department.
I would, to the other point, I think it should say local planning committee, just
Yeah,
those
I would
three
agree.
words.
yeah,
Or local comprehensive,
No, we're listed in the website as local planning committee.
Yeah.
okay.
That's what I would do.
Cool.
yeah.
It's, so the word comprehensive is gone these days, because that was in there in the beginning somewhere. Aren't we always the comprehensive?
We built the local comprehensive plan, but we are the local planning
Yeah,
committee.
No, Jim,
Okay,
you
what
are
we're
right.
doing is we're doing a comprehensive plan.
so you would like that to be stated as a separate entity, local planning committee.
I think so.
Or just
Right.
take out the,
And what about the
Take out
phone
the
number?
planning board.
Does it
Yeah.
just go to,
Yeah.
do you have a special number?
I think we're trying to take.
Do we want to do that or not? Or is that going to overwhelm you guys?
It's, if someone's gonna call town hall, it's gonna come to our department anyway. so
Might as well directly route it.
We'll direct it in.
might as well be direct to
Okay,
Okay.
cool. Awesome. Any other thoughts? We good?
Just back to my other point, this is gonna be good for about a month, and then it'll have to be replaced with something that's gonna point them to the website that shows the
Results.
chevrons or result, or, I mean, something else that's active, because it won't be the survey active.
Could, so if somebody has an old paper, right, or one of these, and it's after we close the survey, is what your concern is?
Well, yeah, it's just, we'd have to have the next step ready, that's all.
So can we, behind the scenes, keep the QR code the same and just change the URL output?
As long,
I
sure,
would have it go directly to the local planning committee.
Perfect,
that's what I would do.
Just across the board, instead of going directly to the survey.
okay.
Yeah, so that when Ed talks to, who are you gonna talk to at the Chronicle?
Tim would.
See, when you're talking to Tim, just prepare him that this is active for a month, and then same construct, but we're gonna change some of the words. 4 weeks,
Yeah.
that's all, I'm just trying to,
So did we talk last time, I think we did, about where this is going to be distributed to?
No, we didn't go in depth about
I think-
where.
Yeah, and I think what we could do, that's a kind of agenda F, we'll go through that towards the end
Okay.
on the, because this is the rack card, am I wrong? It's rack card?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's rack.
So I think this will be, it's part of the, what's going on and what's getting distributed, but we can cover that on section F once we get to it. Cool. cool.
That's the socializing.
Yeah, which we've already kind of started.
So there, the URL is the HTTPS under or visit? That's-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Cool.
And we have a different, we have a shorter URL in the color block.
In the
In
Q,
the QR code, it goes directly to the survey, directly.
Okay.
Doesn't, it passes go, keeps on going. But what we're gonna do is embed the or visit URL
Yeah.
within that QR code. That's what's gonna be embedded in the QR code, so that we can have it for the entire, these cards or this information available for the entire process, and have that information out there, as opposed to, as Brian said, just restricting the QR code to the survey.
Okay.
does that make sense?
Yeah, this way you don't have to change it.
Cool. Let's go to, I think we could probably, do we want to go over the dates first, topic C, or do we want to talk with Karen and open that up first?
Let's talk with Karen.
Yeah, Karen, I don't want to keep you waiting for too long.
If I could, before I forget, Mary? Mary,
Mary?
I'm
can you update the blue block and send it to me?
Yes,
So I can have
yes,
the live copy to, okay.
yes.
Cool.
And thank you, Mary, for putting this together.
Thank you very much.
It's great.
Yeah, you're making us look good.
Cool. So we'll go to Agenda D, comprehensive update from Karen on the data housing production plan. I think everybody received a copy of the draft of the housing production plan, and we actually have it up. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah.
Karen, welcome. We really appreciate you being
Thank
here
you.
tonight.
It's great to be with you.
Awesome.
And I think, Christine, you were going to have someone upload the presentation.
Yes, we're loading it.
I thought it'd be useful just to go through the key takeaways from the first major section of the HPP, which is the housing needs assessment. We'll be tackling the other sections after we have some public process. I presented basically the same PowerPoint to the planning board, and I expect to do basically the same presentation to the Housing Trust, meeting with them next week. And some of the slides I kind of discussed when I had my initial meeting with you, so I might do some flyover because you guys are already kind of apprised of some of the issues. But anyway, let's get into it, and as we have questions arise, you can stop me if the presentation can be uploaded.
The presentation is uploaded now. We're looking at the purpose slide. I don't know if you can see it as well, Karen.
Yeah, I see it. Thank you very much. This is just kind of a basic slide on why we're doing a housing production plan. And this plan is an update of the ones that we did in 2010 and 2016. And the first bullet basically is important because this document is in support of the local comprehensive plan, and also to reinforce the Housing Trust strategic or their action plan. And we've had a chance to take a look at the action plan, and it looks like the recommendation we want to go broader, but they seem to make sense, and I think by and large are something that we can easily embrace. Part of the housing needs assessment is to really revisit demographic, economic, and housing characteristics and trends. I mean, a lot has changed since that housing plan that we did in 2016, and we want to make sure that what we recommend is basically resonates with existing market conditions and demographic shifts. Better understand the current housing market And we're looking at what's went on pre-COVID, during COVID, and after COVID. And there's certainly the impacts become pretty clear. And then through the housing needs assessment, we identify priority needs, and then we identify strategies to address those particular needs as well as production goals. And so the plan really is for a 5-year term. So we're looking at least in the short term, really laying out a roadmap of the town's housing agenda. Doesn't mean that we can't add some longer term goals as part of the plan as well. The possibility is there to gain access to what they call safe harbor, or the certification under housing production plans that can avoid overrides of local zoning. So next slide. Next slide.
We got,
Oh, we'll go back. So very good. What are housing production plans? I went through this with you folks before, but basically, if the state with very prescriptive requirements on what has to be in a housing production plan approves the plan, and then the town actually produces 0.5% of its year-round housing stock, which now is 33 units, it can get the safe harbor certification, where it can deny what it considers inappropriate 40B applications for a period of 1 year. If it produces 1% of its year-round housing stock, which is 66 units, it gets a 2-year safe harbor. Let's go on to the next slide. So what is affordable housing? And I went through this before, that a unit to be counted as part of these annual housing production goals, those 33 goals, and that towards that 10% affordability goal, it has to meet a number of specific requirements. Foremost, it has to be, the units have to be targeted to households earning at or below 80% of area median income for Barnstable County. And just to give you an example, for a household of 3, that's $82,850. Let me go on to the next slide. So what is affordable? We're talking about, hello?
yep,
Yeah,
We're talking about those,
we can hear you.
there's some, I'm having some kind of hello?
Yep.
We're here.
We're having some kind of audio issues, but so on this housing affordability, we're looking at those units that meet state requirements to be included in the subsidized housing inventory. Can you hear me all right?
Yes,
We
Yes.
can.
there
I'm
is
having
a ding, but that's okay.
All right. So the 2020 census identified 6,581 year-round housing units, and that's what the 10% affordability goal is based. It's also what the annual housing production goals are based. I gotta say, I mean, if you look at, in 2010, the year-round housing figure was 6,121, went up to 6,581 in 2020, and then, based on 2021 census estimates, it's gone down to 5,733.
Wow.
You see kind of the kind of part of the impact from COVID, when more people came to the community to ride out the pandemic. And the year-round figure went up significantly, and clearly some of those folks have left or are deciding to stay on a part-time basis. But of the year-round housing units, and we are stuck with that 6,581 year-round figure until the next decennial census is released in 2030. So there are currently 328 units in the subsidized housing inventory, which is the equivalent of almost 5% of the year-round housing stock. Just to give you some idea of the SHI, 80% of the units are rentals. 53, a little bit more than half, were permitted under Chapter 40B. 20 of the units are owned and managed by the Harwich Housing Authority, and the Housing Authority also manages 21 rental vouchers. While those don't count on the SHI, they still serve a real need in the community, stabilize some renter households. So just kind of key takeaways on what we learned from demographic information. The town had a little over almost 1,100 new residents coming into the community between 2010 and 2021 to 13,329 total residents. And you can see from the chart on the right that the population from 1950 really increased regularly. Between 2000 and 2010, it dipped a bit, and then it went up, a fair amount between 2010 to 2020, about a 7.6% growth rate. And according to census estimates, it's dipped marginally in 2021. And projections are that the population will stabilize through 2030 and then begin to decline a bit after that. The demographic information also showed small but growing racial diversity, as non-white residents were comprised 4.6% of the population in 2000 and went up to 5.1% in 2021. The census estimate also showed increasing numbers of modest increases in the numbers of small non-family households. And then clearly, as has been happening, we are losing younger residents and gaining older ones. The next slide shows the distribution of ages with three different census reports, 2000, 2010, and 2021 by age range, with the first group of columns for those under 18, that moves on to 18 to 34. And you see the decrease. There's a 27% decline in children between 2000 and 2021. And it's surprising, those 18 to 34 increased by 12%, which was surprising, and hopefully, hopeful sign. On the other hand, those more middle-aged residents including the younger ones who are forming families, have been declining. And then when you get to the 55 and older, significant increases between 55 and 74. And then some kind of relative stability, a little fall off of those 75 years of age or older. Those 65 and over, based on the 2021 figures, comprise 27% of the population. Projections say that they're going to grow to 42% by 2030 and 2040, and then they're likely to drop off. Clearly, the retirement community and the baby boomers, still are driving the increase in older adults. Okay. Any questions on that? All right, let's move on to economic trends.
Is this data, I missed it, for the year-round houses or for? every-
Year-round.
This is year-round.
Good question. Year-round. This year-round, yeah. Economic trends, rising incomes with a median of $79,641. That is still lower than the 80% of area median income figure for a household of three at 82,850. And it is also lower than the median for the county of almost $91,500. More households earn more than $100,000. 22% of households earned less than more than $100,000 in 2010, and now up to almost 60%. And you can see in the chart on the right that it shows 2010 and 2021 census figures, the numbers of households in various income groups. And all income groups declined below $75,000. And then you see the increases in numbers in higher income ranges, including that dramatic spike for those earning more than $150,000. And then there were declines in households earning less than $25,000. The average weekly wage from the Department of Labor and Workforce Development was $1,116 for Harwich. Those are people who have jobs and actually working physically in Harwich, which translates into an annual salary of about $58,000, assuming they're working full time. So based on the median household income of residents in Harwich is almost $80,000 versus the average of $58,000 for those who have jobs. You can see that a lot of people who work in Harwich can't likely afford to live in Harwich. And 13.5% of residents claimed a disability. As the population continues to age, one expects that will continue to increase. It's lower than the county at 15.4%, but significantly higher than the statewide level of 11.1%.
Hey, Karen, I have a question around this slide. When I see
Yeah.
population as it pertains to being, like, let's just call it below 25,000 in annual income distribution from 2010, and you see it kind of decline, and you see that through the next couple of buckets, is there any way to track the data? And I don't know if this has been done, but of those people who have moved out of those brackets and moved into higher income brackets to make that leap without leaving the town versus the people who actually just leave and disappear from the population itself. Like, is there any way to track that? Because when I see a declining number of folks making under 25,000 and the 25,000 to 34,000 bracket, is that just because they're moving into new brackets in the town, or is that because they're leaving the town?
It's probably both. It's probably a combination. You know, some people in the lower income groups also probably passed away. But it's probably a combination of reasons. And I haven't been able to find any specific data that, that slices that pie up in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I'm sure that would be pretty difficult to to pull together, but I was just curious. It got me thinking.
Clue me in, because that's an important question, and it's just hard to tell. But one expects it's a combination of factors.
Yeah. Okay, continue. I'm sorry.
Okay, let's go on to housing. So this slide basically is focusing on growth and occupancy. 61% of housing stock predates 1980. Therefore, it has a larger potential of having traces of lead-based paint, which is hazardous to children, deferred maintenance issues, et cetera. And there's been limited housing production since 2010. The census counts 232 net new units created between 2010 and 2021. And substantial teardown activity. And quite frankly, the census, I've been trying to figure out, how, in communities, teardown activity is being captured in the census. And my sense is, so far, and looking into records, not in Harwich, it's not very easy to capture these, the actual net increase in units. But the teardown activity has been between about a third to a half of all the new homes that are being developed. Important factor is that Harwich has experienced a loss of year-round rental units since 2010, when it went from 1,110 rentals to 826, or from almost 20% of the housing stock to 14.4%. Owner occupancy is at 86%. It was 80% in 2010, so we're talking about loss of rentals and significant gain in owner-occupied unit. And this is, once again, year-round housing.
I'm not sure,
Eighty-
I'm not sure I understand that. So
Yeah.
explain the owner occupancy at 86%. What is,
all year-round units, 86% of all year-round units are owner-occupied. They get condominiums, two families, single families, all
So-
86%.
so 14% are year-round rentals,
14% of rentals.
but they're not owner occupied. So I'm not sure I understand that.
Rental units are not, they're not owner occupied, same as ownership units
Same as what?
versus rental unit. So in a rental, you're not an owner, you're renting, obviously. So the town has 14% of the units are rentals as opposed to 86% of the units
Okay.
are year-round
People that live here
units
year-round?
are owner.
Of the people that live year-round, because I thought there were a fair amount of housing units that were non-year-round. And that's not what this is
This
taking.
does not count, we're only looking at year-round units here.
Got
The
it.
census really only focuses on year-round units.
I guess I don't understand what the 14% is then.
It's
14% of the total year-round housing stock
It's rental.
Is rental.
of all
Rentals.
year-round units are rentals.
that number was something in the neighborhood of 6,000 and some.
So
So
6,500,
it's about half the town's housing stock is year-round.
Right,
so 50.
right. So the 14% that we're looking at
Yeah,
here,
it's like 41, about 42% of the total housing units are seasonal or occasional.
It's more than that.
Got it.
And that's in,
so about half of the
So-
housing stock are, and this 14%.
let's look at that.
All right, maybe I'm just stuck on it.
Let's look at a chart on the right. So the columns, the higher columns are the total number of units, and the columns below that, by census year are the seasonal or occasional units. And in 2010, 40.5% of all units were seasonal or occasional second homes. It went down in 2020, this impacted COVID, to 37.4% being seasonal or occasional, where there was an increase in year-round units. And then, since then, it's rebounded higher than the 2010 levels to 41.7% of all housing units are seasonal, occasional second homes.
You know, in terms of rentals, that's a national trend of going up, not just here. In fact, I think we have a less severe trend than lots of other places in the country. You know, there are all these big investment firms buying up property and then renting it. And it's,
Right, and those and some are renting, doing it for, short-term rentals, and some are doing it for, actual annual leases, so,
Yeah.
it's, depending on the housing market, it's more or less of one of those in combination.
I guess what
And
I'm
then,
Okay, what I'm trying to get at is the percentage of units decreasing that are available for the year-round rentals, which are impacting the community, versus the seasonal
Absolutely.
2-week,
Absolutely.
month rentals. I'm not getting
Yeah.
a sense of where that is in these trends.
well, the year-round rental units were comprised almost 20% of all units in 2010, and they're now down to 14.4%.
It's going down.
So there is a loss of year-round rental units.
Karen,
You know, some of them are converted to owner occupancy, some are converted to seasonal, some are
Okay.
converted to short-term rentals.
Got
I
it.
mean,
Karen, quick
Yeah.
question. On your last statement, the low vacancy rates, 0.9 for homeownership and 8% for rentals. I don't understand what a low vacancy rate is. Is that I mean, I don't get it.
but I gotta say, anything below 5%, we're talking about low vacancy rate, really tight market conditions. I was surprised at the 8% level for rentals. It might have to do with the change to seasonal. I'm not certain why that was higher. It's gone down since prior years, though. And given that there's been such tight market for rentals, I mean, you can hardly even find them available. It surprised me that the census came up with high as 8%. I thought it would be well below 5%. And in some cases, I've seen 0 as census estimates in some
Okay,
communities.
so I'm reading it.
That wouldn't have surprised me if I saw that here.
So I'm reading it correctly that 8% of the available rentals are remaining available, open?
Yeah, or there are other reasons for being vacant. Vacant units are counted if they're being if it's a turnover, or if they're just coming on the market and they're not leased yet. There are a number of reasons, but yeah, there are units, according to the census in 2021, said at the time of the count, they were available.
So how do you capture that from the census if you're not living somewhere, or I guess I don't understand. How do you know that's 8% of the rentals are empty if you don't get a
The
census
census
card?
basically has data on vacancy status and vacancy rates, and this is the number, this is the level that they came up with.
Karen, if nobody here believes that 8% makes sense, is there any alternate way to look at it to figure out why that might be the case?
Yeah. You can talk to realtors, and realtors say there aren't any units available. I mean, there's the reality in the trenches that basically says, they hardly get any listings, and the listings that they get, are gobbled up rather quickly, and they come up with some estimates that we've included in the draft about prices. But yeah, I mean, sometimes the census information is a little, it's a point in time, and it can be questionable. And I think that you try to look at other information to come up with some reality checks.
Is that because they may be held for seasonable rentals, and so they're not being rented in November and January, but they're fully occupied in the summer? Is there some dynamic going on?
Yeah, but if
These should be the vacancy rates for year-round units.
Yep.
Go figure.
And for
Housing cost trends. We
And
go
for
on to the
rental-
next slide.
For rental units, when they're doing the census, if they don't get a response from people that are actually living in it, the assumption is that they're vacant. So there's,
I don't know if that's the case.
I've had the census people come and knock on my door because I didn't respond,
yeah.
and then they verify it there. So I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe that's what they do?
Can we find out how this 8% relates to other nearby towns and also over time?
Oh, yeah. I have in the document, actually, the vacancy rate over time.
Do you know where
And-
that is?
Yeah, hold on. I have a document. The vacancy rate for rentals has gone down a lot, actually.
If you run do the calculation.
It was, vacancy for rentals was 12.8% in 2010.
What page you on?
2020, it was down to 8%.
2020, there's 900.
And I'll double check what it was for 2021, and I'll get you information on other communities.
It's page 33, David.
Thank you.
No problem.
Right.
You can continue, Karen.
Okay?
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Vacancy rates.
All right. Do you want to put the presentation back up?
It's up,
I think it's up.
so,
Oh, I can't. Okay, housing cost trends. So the housing market in general, it's economics 101.
Wow.
Housing supply has been less than housing demand. The prices have gone up. You talk to realtors, they complain about the lack of inventory, units coming on market. We're talking about increasing affordability gaps. While the median income increased by 92% between 2000 and 2021, the median single-family home price increased by almost 200%. The median single-family house price was $650,000 as of August 2023, and that required an income of about $160,200. And that was based on a number of assumptions, like spending 30% of income on housing, 6.5% in 30-year term, 80% financing. As of the end of 2023, the median single-family home prices increased to $670,000. So in some communities, the market has been kind of flattening because of housing interest rates, et cetera. But it seems to be increasing in Harwich still. So the affordability gap is an estimated $318,700 for the median income earning household, which is the difference between the $650,000 median value and what a median income earning household could afford, or about $331,000. The gap increases to, another to 38,000 if you look at the increase in the median single-family home price. From what information we were able to get from any listings and the realtors was that the market rates of about $2,400 for a two-bedroom unit, and that would require an income of about $106,000. Once again, assuming 30% of income on housing costs, including a monthly average utility bill of about $250. But to give you a comparison, the median income for renter households is about half of what of the $106,000. It's almost $52,000. About 1/3 of households had cost burdens as they were spending more than 30% of their income on housing costs. 14% had severe cost burdens because they were spending more than half their income on housing costs. And then if you look at just the households that were earning at or below 80% of AMI, which was 2,249 households, 63% had cost burdens, and almost 1/3 had severe cost burdens.
Karen,
Yeah,
when you're looking at the year-round rental, does that include units like the Pine Oaks Villages?
that's right.
Okay.
No, wait a minute. The $2,400 is not the average. It's just looking what's coming on the market. There is a median, it's in the plan, I didn't even include it because there is a median gross rent that the census provides, which is much lower than the $2,400, but it does include all those subsidized units. So it's skewed to be less expensive. Now this is what we were hearing, the $2,400 of what was actually coming on the market.
Okay.
The median gross rent she's referring to is on page 40.
Yeah, how much is that?
Rents have continued to increase with the median rent of $1,047 in 2010 and
Yeah.
$1,282 in 2021. Considerably lower than the $1,573 for the county in 2021.
Yeah. those include the subsidized units. So
Okay.
it's artificially
Yeah.
lower than market.
It's getting pulled down by the subsidized units.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Next slide. So what I did was compare the distribution of the numbers of sales by sales price from a period of time of October 2015 to September 2016, which was the curve that comes up early to 166, to the period of October 2022 to September 2023, 7 years apart. And you see the shift in housing prices, you know, from where the median was clearly below $400,000 in the 2015-2016 period. And it's now, we're talking about moving it further to the you know, $500 to $800 range. So the market prices have really shifted, and these are once again numbers of sales within those two time periods. All right, next slide.
Karen, before we, sorry, thank you. So somewhere in the document I was reading earlier today, you said that 2/3, and the reason I'm asking is 2/3 of the houses sold in Harwich were not sold to Harwich residents, something like that, right?
And where's that?
I don't remember a specific, well, the thing is, well, I don't remember that specific.
Okay.
It's a box on page 35. I guess a comment from a local realtor. They
Okay,
continue to
all right,
attract
all right,
multiple
all right.
offers within days of listing. Moreover, about 2/3 of buyers live outside of Harwich.
Live outside of Harwich.
Okay.
I guess my concern, or I think what I personally am seeing is that the houses are being sold, and I track a lot of this pretty closely. They don't even have Cape Cod addresses. They're off Cape that are purchasing these houses. And
Yeah,
in some ways, we're hitting
Yeah.
our head against a brick wall as long as that's going on.
But aren't these houses that are being sold to these folks also owned by people who are not from Harwich?
Not necessarily, could be either.
Could be.
you know, I think that,
Half of them could not
I
be.
think that the dynamic of second homeowners coming from off Cape is going on for a long time.
It would be interesting, though, to know whether there's
People
two
bought
markets for
area
houses.
and,
You know,
you
the
know,
part-time market and the full-time market.
Providence area, people, you know, in the region wanting to live on the Cape and get a second home, and maybe a number of them end up retiring in Harwich. But being off Cape owners is I think, as second homeowners is pretty normal.
Yeah, I mean,
Nothing new.
Well,
yeah, it's a destination of choice. I feel like people want to be here.
I know that, but my point is that a lot of times they're the ones purchasing the houses that are still semi-affordable by local people,
I
and they're
see.
being outbid by the people coming across the
That would be
bridge.
That would be interesting to
I
find
mean,
out.
at one point last year,
I'm sure
I looked,
housing
and
prices are going up.
Yeah,
And incomes of Harwich residents, you know, aren't even medians aren't, you know, keeping up with the housing prices.
yeah,
So of course they're getting outbid.
yeah.
Now, that's an interesting point you make, though.
so my point is we're hitting our head against a brick wall.
If we build all these houses. that are
Right, I
bought
mean,
by
the
outside.
reason I'm saying that is that last year, for about a period of 5 months, I tracked where the houses were, and almost every one of them showed up several months later on either Verbo, We Need a Vacation, or with one of the realtors for rentals.
I wonder what that data would look like.
Yeah. But there is a way of dealing with this. I mean, like, there are some towns that, one of the ones in Colorado has gotten the most press on it, but where they basically have this housing, that you get a discount somehow or another from the city or the state, but you can only sell it to other people who work at that ski resort or whatever it is there. You know, there's no housing for ski resorts, so, yeah, it's Vail. And so you can, those houses stay in the
stock.
local market.
Right, well,
There are
we're way behind.
housing
That program
strategies.
is really looked at across, across the Cape, and in fact is recommended for exploration by the Housing Trust strategic plan. So we'll be looking at, it's called the Vail Indeed program.
Good to know, Karen. You can continue.
Hold on a second. Yes, we're beating our heads against the wall if we rely on market forces solely.
Exactly.
There are so many housing
That's-
strategies out there. And the job of the housing folks in this committee is to say, what are we focusing on? That's what we gotta do over the next however long time period.
Yeah.
That's right, that's right. I mean, it's challenging for sure. But hopefully there are some additional resources that will be coming down based on the housing bond bill to be supportive of some, greater efforts. And this slide just looks at the priority housing needs, looking at, rental housing continuing to be a focus, year-round rental housing, for various reasons, including, the ability to look at housing for some of the most financially vulnerable residents, diversifying the housing stock, making up for some of the loss of rentals. Almost all state subsidies are targeted to rentals, so if you're going to leverage limited CPA money, and go to some scale, rentals are the only option for doing that, and long waits for subsidized housing. But the housing agenda, and this basically kind of the same priorities that we had before. These still on the housing agenda. There's a place for some starter housing and home ownership units, and then to integrate handicap accessibility and supportive service for new development. We have an aging population, 13.5% of residents claim to disability. So ways to try to help special needs folks in accommodating their needs in new development makes a lot of sense. And to continue to support necessary home improvements to improve housing conditions. And then just two things. So next steps, and I think that part of your agenda will be talking a little bit about the process.
Karen, can we stay on this page for 1 second?
Sure.
I think this is very much where we need to start our work. The continued focus, the focus on rental housing is coming through from a number of the housing reports is what we should be doing. And I'm not convinced that this group or this town is there yet. So I think that has to be a very initial part of the discussion.
I also think to that point, when you talk about the subsidies that we're getting from the state, they're focused on the rental community, right? So that just reinforces David's point. If that's what we're going to tap into.
If we're going to buy into that, there
Yeah.
has to be public acceptance of that, which I don't think is there yet.
Yeah.
And, historically, amongst the towns in this area on the Cape, Harwich has historically been resistant to developing multifamily rental housing.
Exactly.
You drive around Dennis, Yarmouth, Orleans, and they have many, many more apartment complexes than Harwich does.
So that's a big change if we go that way.
Yeah.
Huge.
I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm just saying we got to have that conversation.
Could I
Yeah.
add to this? And this is just on the other side here. One of the concerns that I had is that like the starter home and first-time home buyers, it's a second priority. And I understand the need for, the emphasis on rentals. But there has been, from what I've seen with all of the analysis of the information, you have a lot of people that want to live on the Cape, young families, they want to live here, they want to raise their children here. You have Cape Cod Tech right here. And so if you have any of the tradespeople that say, I want to live here, but they can't afford to buy the home they're building or anything like that. So I'm looking at it, instead of having first priority, second priority, can we have a more unilateral distribution of that so we can have our policemen, firemen, nurses, everyone actually afford to be able, any of the town employees afford to live on the Cape. So that's
Well, you
the
know-
concern I had.
You know, you could put that in the plan. However, pragmatically, given that CPA is about the only subsidy for ownership, and, or you have the market units cross-subsidizing the affordable ones, it means that because of the high prices of land and property and the incomes of the people you want to go to, you have a huge gap for one unit that has to be subsidized. So it becomes harder, pragmatically, given resources and policy of how much subsidy you're going to spend per one unit, to justify a large scale home ownership units in a development as opposed to,
So, so
a
we were talking about,
condominium.
like,
I'm talking about financing is an issue.
so we have the, on Forest Street, Englewood Drive, and there are all those multi-stories. I think there are 2 or 3 stories back there. 2 stories. Are those rentals or are those owned? I wonder.
Condos.
They're condos.
Yep.
Because that,
Ownership.
it's funny, I just made a wrong turn on my bike one day and saw it. You never know it's there. And so the question is that a model we should be looking at where you put some density, but it's not density that's right on the road?
Well,
The Pine Oaks is-
You could do,
Pine
you
Oaks
could
does
have
it too.
condo units, market units, cross-subsidizing affordable ones within a development.
Actually,
If,
looks like
there
it's
was
a
some
little
density in numbers of units to take advantage of economies of scale and make the numbers work.
Yeah.
and that's from-
Are
okay,
those
you go
full-time?
I was just gonna come back to Mary's point. Rather than getting
You ever seen
into the solution like you were just commenting
Straight up Forest
about, Karen, and
Road from
I'm
the golf
sure you're
course to the-
perfectly correct in the amount of resource that you can put against it. Let's separate the priority and the focus from the solution. 'Cause I think what you said was spot on, Mary, that
That's Palm Beach.
we have a multitude of issues and a multitude of problems. And I don't know that we want to take any of them off the table, per se. And say that there are several of these areas that we want to address. Some of them are going to be addressed by rental, some of them will be addressed by whatever we can address with home ownership, whether it's first time or second time, It might be somebody who's living on the other side of the bridge that we're trying to get on this side of the bridge. So I think there's several more situations that we're trying to help address for young families that we need to live closer to where they work. Otherwise, they're more likely to to work where they live, which is on the other side of the canal.
So, one of the dangers, and I've been involved with past efforts, which is basically shotgun. It has all these ways of doing it, and just pick one, and nothing changes, nothing much happens.
Yeah.
I personally agree with Karen that we do need to focus more on rental. I think how those rental get done, it's very dangerous, and it's going to be a lot of public backlash, particularly when you pick a specific location for it to go in. I think we need to explore that further, not at the expense of the single family, because that's extremely important. So I don't know how we do that balance yet, but
Yeah, I think you can paint a picture that says we recognize the problem, we recognize the situation, and here's how we might suggest attacking it without alienating. And there might be pluses and minuses for where we zero in on rental ahead of something else. I just don't want to, alienate a group that
But I
may not.
think-
The big A and little a.
that's the next one I want to get.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Brian, I think part of our job is to is to educate the community about the trade-offs. And I think a lot of people think if you just build more housing, that that's gonna solve the problem. And I think what we've learned is that if you build more housing, a lot more people from off Cape will buy it up and have a second home here.
Right.
And so, we need to come up with solutions that will be affordable in the sense of how many, you want them to be subsidized, you want them to be permanently affordable, and you can get a lot more bang for your buck doing shallower subsidies for rental units than you can for single-family homes. It's just the reality of it.
I agree with you, but I think you also have to take people on the journey of the logic. And I absolutely agree with what both of you are saying. I guess it's how you unfold the story.
And I guess that one of the problems is that,
They were still
Sorry, I was
going.
just catching up. But Karen was on.
yeah.
Sorry.
One of the problems, though, in developing rental housing with the subsidy and state programs is that it doesn't provide a home that when somebody's income starts moving, that they can stay in.
You've educated us
You know,
about this.
they
So
get
interesting.
booted out. Whereas if you get somebody into a home ownership home and you've subsidized that, they own it, and when their income goes up, they don't necessarily have to move. And,
I gotta say though, interject on the rentals, their income has to go up like 140% of the 80% limits before they're no longer eligible for the affordable unit. I mean, so there's a huge kind of, a very substantial opportunity for growth in income before that ends. And I really don't hear, I haven't ever really heard much, conversation about that being a problem.
Well, I can give you an example
necessarily.
right now.
Because
Can I-
get to that level,
I mean, do we?
they're looking to go somewhere else.
Can I jump in? I'm totally, but I mean, I think I kind of have my finger a little bit on the pulse. Sorry to just totally parachute in, but we know we've been talking about this for a long time. I would take ownership, a little bit of first-time ownership is second priority. Is that, just to contextualize, that's what you're telling us, Karen? That's what your thoughts are?
Yeah, I mean, look at the SHI units that you have so far. 80% are rentals, and that's for a reason. That's because that's where the financing is. That's where, you can actually, create some affordability.
I hear you,
leverage your
I hear you
local
on that, but
resources.
to Margot's point of, that's not necessary, educating the public about what is possible compared to what we are seeing on our survey data. Probably our job is gonna be more nuanced about that. And at this point in time, putting at least my name on, where we end up, I reserve the right to change my mind, but I would not be comfortable sort of saying that in print as part of an LPP plan right now, that first-time home ownership is the second priority. That's just not what people seem to be telling us. But I hear you about, like, as an expert in your field, what you're saying about that, but.
Well,
All right, what I will do then,
That is controversial.
I won't talk about first and second. I will talk about just priorities, and I'll take out some of the.
I would take, for our purposes, I would have as little editorial as possible for
but
right now.
you might not have heard it, but we were also
And
talking
let
about
me
how
mention, though,
if you
when
build
we are
houses that
doing
are
kind of
owned,
presentations to the
it means
public,
outsiders will.
I think some of these pros and cons on approaches need to be discussed.
Totally. I guess I'm just, we haven't even had our in-person visioning sessions yet, so I'm hesitant. And I really respect you as the expert in many ways, and so I hear you when you talk about like how do you actually move the needle on available units with funding that's available and stuff like that. But I'm hesitant to, like, we gotta at least go through the process, given of what we've been getting data-wise and stuff, to like listen
I got it.
listen
I got it.
more some to the community, at least as the LPP. The trust may be able to have more, you know, because they've got a different mission than the local planning committee.
If,
But-
if I
Got
could just mention just one more piece of information on page 60 of the plan, just one, again, that really supports as far as the goals-based on your first-year goals based on annual housing production. The rental is at 80%. So if we're talking about those 33 units that we're trying to go towards, it's 13 units for rental families, 13 units for rental seniors and individuals, and then only 7 units of home ownership units. That 7 is gonna, I'm thinking, gonna hit a mark somewhere. They're gonna see that. Only 7 are units as far as that goes. And maybe that's all I was trying to see, if we can kind of have it more equitable. I truly understand the rental aspects and the reasoning behind it. But again, to speak as to what Joyce said, as far as having that be more representative of the visioning process.
And I can see us being asked who's most vulnerable, like in a group mission, in a group setting. Who is? I know, I know, Karen, what you're saying about like vulnerable, but
Well,
Yeah.
I'll take the table out. If you're uncomfortable with it, I'll take the table out. I'll take the percentages out.
I don't think,
You know,
No,
a lot of
I
this is
wouldn't go
based
to-
on,
no,
a lot
it's
of this
not
is based
that.
on
Who's chairing?
practical requirements
sorry,
and
I'll
regulations,
just want to make sure.
based on housing needs that are.
Karen, hold on one
cost
second.
burden.
Karen, hold on one second.
So-
David needs to speak.
All right, we're raising a real question based on our knowledge of this community. You've got a lot of expertise about what is real and what can happen. I don't want to see you throw out anything yet.
Right.
I think we're just putting the brakes on a little to make sure
Yes,
where we want to
agreed.
go.
Or when to raise
Okay.
it? Do
Yes.
we put those numbers in after a visioning?
After the
And
visioning.
the other thing is, in my mind, I like to see a business case for some of these things. How do you put numbers against it? Like, when you talk about rentals, does it cost the town, for every $100 you put into a rental solution, is it $500 that you have to put into the housing? I mean, Margot, I really liked your point that when you lay it all out, one would realize that you're gonna get more bang for the buck on a rental solution. I think we need to lay it out so that it becomes quite obvious
Yes.
of why we're moving down this path, and not at the exclusion. We might do a little bit here, but we're gonna focus a lot here, because for the dollar that we put here, we're gonna affect a lot more people.
Yeah, we got to make that point.
So I think there needs to be a dollar business case, and we probably don't, I'm not sure when that unfolds, but certainly I don't think we should put final vision-like percentages before we do a vision.
Yeah, I think it's more about the workshop is to intake and educate more and get these point of view across. I love the fact that I happen to be chairing the most controversial of the meetings. It's phenomenal, I must say.
Sorry. I was at the worst.
No.
I mean,
I
really,
get it.
resonant.
This one's pretty good. So I think this is, like, we're obviously hitting a hot spot. I think it comes down to a few points. David and Margot both illustrated the fact that they've gone through these exercises before, and they've done the here's all your options approach, and there was no enforcement or teeth within the confines of the plan, and nothing really got done. Was that the frustration you were
Well,
alluding to?
that's one, I did refer to that, yes.
Okay.
I got another one when we're ready.
Please, go ahead.
Once we're ready, once we want to move on from bashing rental,
We're not bashing.
Karen's work product is focused on the 80% and below, as I understand it, which is fine. And this committee has.
No, not necessarily. We've, tracked some needs above the 80%.
Oh, I know that.
And so, I can tell you though, that the greatest needs are under that level, but we also have information
So-
above that level.
So where I'm trying to go, I may have said that just wrong, is we have been getting our survey input, and we're really, we keep talking about the teachers and the nurses and the firemen, et cetera, with the understanding that that's not all going to be at the 80% and below. There's a very big segment
Right.
above the 80% and below market. And how do we get at that level? Now, I think we still want to explore that thoroughly, but I will say, and we don't have to get into the weeds right now, but on page, table dash 35 on page 57, there's a table that might change my thinking entirely if I understand it correctly. And it's saying that there's 1,800 households of less than 80% AMI, which ends up creating a deficit of 1,200. And much lower numbers when you get above 80% and even more above 100%. So that sort of undercuts the thinking that our big problem is in the middle, and it sort of supports the idea that the big problem is still at the bottom end. I don't know if I'm reading that right.
I have to say, though, for home ownership, it is very hard to qualify any long-term homeowners for affordable housing because of their equity and assets. Nevertheless, I mean, CPA allows you to go up to 100% AMI, and there's some new resources, hopefully will come down the track from the housing bond bill, that will allow communities, will provide resources to go up to higher than 100% AMI. So I think there are some opportunities that will be coming down the track that will be able to deal with municipal employees on a much better, and essential workers on a much better way.
Is it okay?
Go ahead.
I think we've long thought of this as an opportunity, like in working hand in hand with the trust, and recognizing their mission that is funded and they're granted, and we certainly, our work as a committee certainly includes that, but is also an opportunity to move beyond and talk a bit beyond what the trust big A, affordable A housing goals are or mission is. I would kind of lay it out there that I would anticipate that our LPC will at least reference or try to stimulate interest in, if not create any binding component of like the little a affordable housing, exactly what you're referencing, like other tools that are coming down the pike for the community, whether they're funded or not.
Absolutely.
To try to influence some of the market forces. I mean, and what is tossed around in those surveys a lot is, regulation around Airbnb and stuff like that. I'm not saying that that's, but, these are things that are not necessarily state or federally funded, but it seems like people are talking about in the community that we're going to probably have to consider. At least, not that we're like legislating them, but that we're at least thinking about them.
I've included in plans, referenced models of other towns' regulations on short-term rentals.
I think we probably
and
should.
certainly we can deal with that in this plan if that's what, we can show what some other communities are doing.
I think we would probably want to consider it as ideas, again, in complementing what the trust's work.
Yes.
I think any sort of innovative alternatives that we can inject that will give the community ideas to iterate upon and talk through, I think would be very, very beneficial.
And well received from what we're hearing, like in our survey data.
Good.
We need the art of the possible, Karen.
Yes.
We need you to walk us through it.
Because I feel like the community is actually pretty sophisticated and understand that this is not easily fixable. You know, like we probably need a lot of things.
All right.
I think we're good to move on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry that we spent so much time on those slides, but that was very beneficial. Thank you, Karen.
Oh, important. Oh, yeah, this next steps, I kind of leads into your conversation about the workshops that are coming up, because we still, let me just on the next steps, we go through some kind of a community process, which will be important. Then we'll get to the next sections of the plan, and then we'll put together the goals and the strategies and digest that, and then bring that to another, at least another community setting for further input. And then the planning board and the select board both have to approve the plan before we can send it to the state.
Karen, have you already been noodling around like potential dates for those community housing workshops and visioning sessions?
Well, I thought it would be useful to talk about, Sharon and I had initially talked about how we might integrate,
Yeah.
some of the housing with the visioning. I really kind of take the cues from you folks and how you'd like to set it up. We could set it up as a completely, separate community housing workshop and breakout groups, and or we could somehow figure out how to integrate it in your visiting sessions. You tell me what works for you.
I would think the general consensus here would be to integrate, but if there's any opposition to that, to integrating the sessions, Dave, any reason why there would be an issue? I think we're okay. Are you good down there? Yeah, I think we would be okay and open to that.
And just looking at this slide, it's lovely, and I think our in those community sessions, because we're not going to have a community vision session without talking about housing in Harwich in 2024.
Right.
Like that's what
Right.
it's going to be about.
Right.
Right, that in the water, which you keep going back to.
Yeah.
Yes.
You need water for houses.
Yes, it is.
That's right.
Is to help differentiate ourselves from the trust plan, which is also being well publicized. Not even differentiating, just educating our town members about how these are complementary.
Yeah.
Because that slide, I hear you, but we're gonna have to shop it around how it's different than the trust plan.
Go ahead, Mario.
One of the things that struck me when I read the trust plan was that they had 27 people that participated in their session last summer, and 27 people in a town of 13,000 is not very many people. So I think it's going to be really important for us to have it as part of our process, and I think we're more likely to get people to participate if it's part of the bigger picture.
Cool. Karen, was there anything else on this that we wanted to cover?
No, I mean, I don't think, there's another slide, but I don't think it's necessary.
Okay, cool. I think that kind of rolls into the, going back to see, unless there's more discussion on this topic, but I think they would go into the dates of the visioning events that we have kind of penciled out.
Yeah.
And we can have discussion around that, and maybe if Karen stays on for a hot second, then we can kind of talk through it.
No, that's important, yeah.
Cool. I think we have at least penciled in Saturday, the 23rd of March, 10 to 12 at the Cultural Center, and a secondary session Saturday, 4-6, 1 to 3 at the Community Center. And I think we wanted to discuss, one, is there an ability to participate remote, and would it be effective in that session? And I think the second part of it was, how do we unify and take Karen's work and that team's work and kind of do it together? So open dialogue.
Say the dates again.
Saturday, the 23rd of March, 10 to 12 in the Cultural Center. And Saturday, 4-6, which is April, 1 to 3 in the community center, all in Eastern Standard Time.
If we're gonna run this, if we're gonna include
Eastern Daylight.
Karen's and work, I mean, not that we wouldn't anyhow, do we really think the 2 hours is gonna be enough, Joyce?
It's okay if I feel.
Yeah, go ahead. I
I'm
was-
so appreciative to you, thank you. So I don't
Please
wanna
take,
be like
please
a
take
big-
over whenever you want.
No, thank you for running the meeting.
I barely got through the meeting agenda at the beginning, so.
you.
I think we have to make it work, because 2 hours, people start,
It's too much, is enough,
Yeah.
right? We had
2
talked
hours.
about that, so like,
2 hours
you know, Sharon's gonna
fine,
talk
but
about
after,
facilitating, but like, realistically, we got people calm, like, and, you know, this is, I think, gonna be pretty, we're gonna need your expertise on making this, but I mean, the people we wanna hear from can't give more than 2 hours on Saturday.
yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
kind of been our general sort of,
It's good.
you know, what we've seen in other communities is that, and especially if you're going to make it hybrid, or, you know, like having virtual participation at the same time, usually like 90 minutes is really the max you can get people to really stay engaged. So 2 hours, longer than that, I mean, you'd have to, I mean, it can be done, and you know, but we've talked about kind of keeping it kind of constrained to 2 hours.
How do you see the activity or presentation going?
Well, we've been discussing that as well, and that's really what we should talk about, because we started talking about, I think, in November, December, if, you know, should it be focused on a general visioning type of workshop, or should we, you know, take a deeper dive and have breakout rooms and get into specific topics? So I think we really want to hear from all of you, you know, or how are you sort of, what direction you're kind of going in now, because I think you've had substantial input through the, you know, survey cards and now the complete survey. If it's the committee's desire to have it more focused, then we can talk about how, you know, how we accomplish that, so.
Well, I think to the extent that you have activities that sort of put the group into motion
Right.
with breakout groups or getting up and having visioning statements at different groups, to the extent you do things like that, you can extend the time. But if it's not going to be that sort of thing, I think that the 2 hours is probably, you know, if it's just simply presentations and taking comments back.
Oh,
It's,
it would definitely not be that
Yeah, I think
format.
interactive.
It's-
that's what I'm trying to get this.
Yes, I'm sorry, so maybe you should have said that, you know, we really, you know, strongly recommend that it be very interactive and that there be activities throughout even the 2 hours. And you can cover a lot of ground in 2 hours, with a lot of people. It can get a little hectic if it's all in one room, so, I mean, you know, there's a lot of like logistics to discuss, but I think we really still wanted to hone in on the committee's desire to do, you know, something more high-level visioning initially, or to, again, you know, start to zero in on some specific topics with maybe a portion that's devoted to visioning, and then a portion that's more specific.
I think we're gonna lose people about the visioning. I mean, this is so practical. and
Do we have
this-
one room for
and-
visioning and one room for good
No,
stuff?
I mean,
No,
but I mean, people wanna like fix housing, they
Yeah.
want us to have clean
That was
water,
intentional.
and they wanna have a lot of rec activities for their kids. Like, I mean, and then our older crowd too. I mean, like, this is
They also
what,
want that.
this is what we're hearing in the survey. Like, there is no like reflection of like an existential problem of what like
And they don't want
Harwich's
it-
vision
And
is.
they don't want
in
it to
the-
cost anything.
Well, I think the benefit is the culture of Harwich is clearly one of the defining pillars of our community. So I think from a visioning perspective, I think there's a general consensus of like where the town wants to go, at least from the responses.
Yes.
And so I think if we narrow down the subject matter to those major like obstacles that we've
Yes.
got in front of us, I really think we'll get a ton of engagement and they'll actually feel like they're being heard.
And maybe we do it with a little bit of brainstorming around solutioning. If those are the big
Yes,
rock
yes.
issue areas, maybe we get people to contribute and just start thinking.
So, so in addition to housing, what are some of those sort of hot button topics that you're seeing from the survey that you'd like to focus on?
Growth.
You know,
Um,
I mean, where and how are we growing?
Okay.
You know, I think there's, and what does that mean for the character and livability of the
Yeah.
town?
I don't know the, exactly, and we don't have to, I think, commit, luckily, right, we're not coming up till, we're March 26th, so we can kind of noodle a little bit and maybe finalize next month about like what the 2 hours actually looks like, but, I bring it to the experienced people in the committee who've gone through these kind of stuff before, of like, do you use it as like a temperature gauge of like some of these things that come up at town meeting or come on, like I'm agnostic about this, but like the fertilizer ban, you know, as it relates to water, like, do you just kind of let that come out? Do you propose, that's a very hyper granular example, that's not maybe the best example, but like, do you break people randomly into like, or do you let people go to a little housing group, a little water group, a little rec group?
And let them rotate through,
Well,
almost?
we have definitely done that. Sorry, Christine. No. Too. Where, you know, you could have, that's what I'm trying to tease out, like,
Yeah.
sort of, what are the, like, the hot
Topics.
topics? And then, in terms of format, you know, given a limited amount of time, you might have people select from, you know, if you have, let's say, 4 topics, they select 2 or 3.
Okay.
And
Then everybody, and you go to 2,
go
gotcha,
to
that's
2,
interesting.
Or you could have, you know, 20 or 30-minute segments, and you rotate. You know, you can go to all of them,
So
or you can go to some of them.
The rec
you
is
know.
gonna be one, and I wonder if you can use
Okay.
that for the rec plan too. Like, since that's part of the open space.
You mean
and
the
rec-
open space and rec?
The open space,
Okay.
space and rec plan, I wonder if, could that visioning go into some of that?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you could,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Okay.
So look at that.
So
Yeah.
are those the 3 key issues?
Oh,
or
I don't know.
Is
Those
there, are there any others?
What are other
I
people's?
think the growth is going to have so much in it, because there's so many components in the growth, such as zoning or open space or any of that. I think that's gonna be a large discussion.
Unless you break it out into
Water, wastewater.
subject areas.
Right.
Water is a big.
You could
committee.
break growth out into areas.
What else would you break it out into? Because I think, when I think of growth, I think of water, I think of housing, and I think of open space and rec.
Zoning is the how,
Zoning.
to
Oh,
another.
so
Zoning is a big one.
So you would even carve that out into its own thing, Mary, you think?
It's more into how things are being developed, how the procedurally,
So
you
the-
know, with existing bylaws, et cetera, that is, I believe, a concerned issue.
So maybe that's its own, maybe it's, you know, the big 3, and then growth.
What we're really talking about is land use. So land use and growth is sort of a piece of it, and resource protection is another piece of it, and that includes the water and, you know, issues.
Vegetation management.
Yeah, I mean, all of the, you know, the issues with
Erosion
wet-
and,
wetlands
Yeah.
and some of the climate change things, and all of that stuff sort of is in one big bowl.
I wonder if like town services,
No, I was just gonna say, were there any topics that were not included on, you know, from the survey, say climate change, coastal resiliency, other issues that we may not have, we may also want to add?
that was on there.
It was in there.
That
No,
was
no,
on-
I'm
yeah.
sorry, it was in
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
I-
yeah,
I-
yeah.
maybe wasn't as
Might not-
discussed.
Yeah.
Hey, could you just, if we're thinking really, could you have we haven't finalized the format of the 2 hours, like, but it'd be interesting to have like an open session, like if people, okay, here's a presentation, this is our data, whatever, blah, 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 this is the purpose of this. We're gonna have time here, maybe you have 5 stations and you can go to 2 or 3, just theoretically thinking that. I wonder if you had a
Ad hoc,
yeah, not otherwise included.
Something else.
Session, you know, like a not otherwise included station, I don't know.
We used to call those parking lots.
Yeah, to include the thing, to not be too narrow.
So make sure maybe for that second session, if there's a theme in one of those parking lot, we
I
really-
was kind of viewing them both as not necessarily linear, but I'm
Okay.
open to feedback about that. I was just viewing them both as sort of equivalent. Of course, we might like polish something the second time a little bit. We figured, oh, like, well, no one drinks coffee, we'll bring, or, like you'd,
Well, I mean, first
I
of all,
didn't-
think we need to provide beer. I
Yeah.
think that's a bare minimum.
10 in the morning.
So,
I didn't think
Mimosas.
I wasn't thinking of them necessarily as linear. I was just thinking more like, what day can you come?
Yeah,
Kind
that's,
of
that's
equivalent-
generally
equivalent.
what you offer is like
Okay.
a choice of
Either
dates.
or.
Now,
Yeah.
these do both happen to be on the weekend, so, we have done some where there's like an option for a virtual only session, on an evening or something.
That's hard to facilitate, though. It's hard to,
I was interested if we can, at least in one of those spaces, Christine, have virtual option, note creeping on some of the stuff about whatever, there was a lot of youth were involved for a rec committee meeting recently. There was a lot of chatter, oh, can I participate virtually because someone is doing this or that, so I don't know how, at least it probably a good faith effort to participation if we're in a room that would allow for that, to maybe have one of those stations be.
My understanding is that neither the cultural center
Bummer.
or the community center have the facilities to do live. And I'm not sure if Ty and Bond has any resources to set up or can facilitate meetings such as that with
Well,
other
I mean,
equipment.
we can certainly facilitate it, but it has to be capable of, the
Right.
facility has to
You
be
need the
capable of
infrastructure there.
being able to. do
Could
it.
we
Yeah.
maybe think on that? Because I wonder if even if you just have like a laptop with one of us as a station.
or Zoom classrooms. I mean, do you do breakouts in the
Well, what they say,
classroom?
they don't have the cameras and stuff like that.
No,
To-
but everybody could be on a laptop for a Zoom classroom type.
Let's
of,
think about that.
You
maybe.
could do something separately,
we
that's what I'm
would-
saying,
we
you
would
could
each
either
have
do
to
it at
be
the
in
same
a classroom
time.
to facilitate.
I think you would need to do it separately, the
Right.
virtual and the in-person
It's not
collaboration.
that they would be
don't-
talking
No,
to each other,
I
but
guess
yeah.
what I was thinking, there would be 2 in-persons and a third virtual. I don't think you can do the virtual at the same time you're doing.
Well,
No.
you,
The
you
in-person, that
can,
would be-
but only if the facility
And
where you're doing it.
they don't.
Use it.
So
Yeah, it's
let's
not, so-
move away from that
Yeah,
and say,
so-
maybe there's a third session which would be all virtual, like a
But if you're
Zoom
gonna-
classroom.
Yeah,
If you're gonna have like 5 different areas, then how do the virtual people move from area to area?
you have breakout rooms.
But you put them in, have you ever done the virtual classroom type of a Zoom? Well, you just get pushed into
A room.
a classroom.
Or you choose,
Yeah,
you
you just-
choose where you want to go.
Maybe we
But you
can,
need
maybe
a-
as we start to socialize the dates, we could
Master
see how much,
facilitator.
maybe there'll be less.
Well, you need then a
Grumpiness about
separate camera to,
No, everybody does it off their own.
He said this is a third session.
Oh, okay.
So not.
Third
it wouldn't
session,
be-
Okay, yes,
completely
yeah,
virtual.
yeah.
How many sessions do we have with y'all?
Well, so there are, 2 that are being planned, that would be in person, and what we're talking about is a third that would be virtual. They would all be advertised together so that people would be aware in advance, that there is this other option, perhaps it's after, or in the
And I would-
middle of these
Or
two.
they're-
Are we,
gonna do
are
it-
we still looking this summer, though, for
Yeah,
the
we're gonna have a
seasonal
summer-
residents?
We're gonna have a summer
That's
session.
a separate,
I-
a whole separate.
Okay,
event.
but that's, you got that covered in your budget, or yes, no schedule?
To be determined, I think.
Okay.
I think,
Well, I think it's really important that,
depends on the nature of it, but, we
Yes.
can certainly provide support for it, yeah.
What do you, I don't know about the virtual option,
I'm not sure we need it.
I
mean,
wonder if-
I think that
having people take responsibility and come in person
Well,
might be good.
people can't, so I think it's
Yeah.
good just for,
It's,
it's good for our,
it's just. it's-
Brand?
it's
you
just
might,
yes.
you
It's
might
much
be
harder
surprised.
to have interaction and, it's much flatter. You don't get the kind of
Could we,
energy.
could we table it to
You
see?
do have the energy, because I facilitate virtual classrooms. And I have a question about not having the infrastructure in the cultural center, because that was a former school, correct?
yeah,
Yes.
but
And
older.
we set up our classrooms
Yeah,
or
it's,
a virtual
I think they
classroom.
just, what they mean is like, it's not wired like this in the library room that we're gonna be in, you know?
But that's what I was thinking, the infrastructure could be because it was a former
Yeah,
school.
it's just not, I don't know, could we
But
table-
even still-
table it and sort of see who responds and?
The virtual classroom could be even here, or one of the areas here that have, obviously, the infrastructure to accommodate online participation through Zoom. So I think there would be a benefit to it because of the statistics we saw as far as the the demographics.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point.
And reaching as many people as we can.
I think we keep it on the table to talk about it. I think the most important thing is to figure out the in-person stuff. I do think it's vital that we probably give that option, but that's just my take. I don't know if you guys want to just vote on it now, or you want to table it for later. To include a third virtual session outside of these two in-persons.
I don't want to ask for a vote unless I know we're going to win.
I guess I have a little bit of an instinct, let's see.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's table it, let everybody fight amongst themselves.
No, I mean, because it doesn't
Well, I
burn
think
any
it's better
bridge,
if
like,
Let's make sure it can be done.
Sure.
right, well,
And
we don't know
done
it
in the
can be
right
done.
way.
Well, yeah, the classroom can be done.
Yeah, it's just the execution of it. I mean, and I think these are nice dates that keep us on our calendar. They're in good spaces, they're like,
I wouldn't get too excited about what we have in here either. It's
Right.
hard, it's
Right.
hard to be
Yeah.
Right.
on there.
Karen, did you feel very engaged with us, or was it difficult today?
I'm going with the flow here.
So we gotta work on it. But if we've got Mary's energy, we could probably do it correctly. I'm good with it. But I think we'll table the possibility of the virtual session, but I think it's definitely something to consider. And then outside of that, are we good with the dates that we've thrown around for the in-person stuff?
That's right.
The dates seem.
April and March.
Yep.
Could I ask, just in terms of the content of how we do this, I mean, part of what we were thinking was that we wanted to at least be able to report back to the group what we learned from the survey. So it seems like at the beginning, there ought to be a short presentation that says, we did this, we got
Yes.
this many responses, and this is what we're hearing.
Yes, and I think it
and
ought
this
to,
is why we're talking about.
Yeah.
and I think it ought to be flowed in terms of whatever the breakouts are going to be, there ought to be a
Yeah.
slide teeing up each of the breakouts.
Yes.
Housing, water, rec,
What
It's
did you
not
say
just
you called, you
We had
called
land
it something,
use.
land use?
Housing, land use, and growth.
Land use and growth management, that's,
And
you know,
then
that's
and
kind of
natural
an umbrella.
resources.
that
Environment,
Go
yeah.
together. And then, yeah, the
Environmental.
environmental issues, which include open space protection and natural resource protection.
Water,
So that's
wastewater.
water.
Water and
natu-
wastewater.
Wildlife habitat, climate change, all of those things are sort of in that.
That's number 2.
Would
Yeah, that's
zoning
number
fall
two.
into housing, or
What
would
else?
that fall into? land use?
Margot, keep going, so you got 2 so far.
Yes,
You're like a savant.
Housing, I think.
zoning is really important to housing.
What is what?
Zoning is important to
Important to
housing.
housing, she
Thank you,
said.
Karen.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so there's 3.
yeah. So,
The only other one that's come up is recreation. I don't know if you
Growth
include
is
that
really
in there.
important to housing too. It's hard to separate that out.
it is, but,
And speaking for our member who isn't here, community identity and culture,
That's right.
yeah,
That would be a good one.
yeah.
you know.
What was that?
Unity, identity, and culture.
But what would you put in there?
How many are we talking about?
But
So abstract.
in Bernadette's absence, I
Yes.
felt somebody needed to represent her.
Yeah,
How many are we trying for?
I would say 4 or 5.
We can revisit it next
Sharon?
month too, but just putting everything out there. I don't know if,
The timing,
But how do we-
I was gonna say, if our meeting is next month, that's cutting it
Yeah,
close.
it is.
So I
Yeah.
would recommend maybe asking everyone to submit their top 3, or do like a little doodle poll, in terms of topics and headings.
Do we have to do that now, or could we send that in anonymously.
Send it in like
Good
within 2
anonymous.
weeks or
How would you,
10 days.
how did we break out the survey? What are the topics? I mean, shouldn't they be similar to?
Yeah, that's, we're just making
Run
sure we're not
parallel.
missing any. I don't think
Oh,
we're
I know
huge.
that, but
And I think
we
it'll
could
sort
add.
of come up what it would, I was just sort of thinking, like, is there anything like separate from like the schools, but I think that sort of.
There's community services and infrastructure.
Right, that's, yes. Maybe that's what includes your recreation,
And education.
yes.
Yeah.
And we might have to talk about it in a more, like, if you come on a Saturday with your coffee, community services and recreation, and you some, we have to kind of, like, what are we talking about here?
If you say something like community services, really get the buzz things in there, to
Yeah.
focus on recreation and whatever else, with the real issues right now.
Yeah.
Because community services will just
I think we have to
people
s-
to sleep.
Well, we'll
Feel like
show
I'm
them
in
some
Saturday
feedback,
detention.
Whatever the
Well,
feedback
but-
is from the survey.
But
But to-
if you're talking about community services and infrastructure, that's where the whole wastewater thing falls.
Right.
I mean, it's part of, it's part of land use, and it's part of
Well, they all
natural
overlap.
resource protection too, but, I mean,
So if
It
you've
should
got,
be part of housing, because without wastewater,
well, that's, and,
Exactly.
see,
That's-
this
it
is
is
where,
right
I
now.
mean, there's
Not the
always gonna be
density.
overlap. and
you can sort these out a little better, but you've got housing, you got the whole the natural resource, blah, blah, blah. You've got the growth,
Yeah.
and you got the community services. Those are
Four,
four areas.
that's good,
But
that's very strong.
It's okay if they overlap,
Yeah,
because we can
absolutely.
bring them together later.
And I
That's
think
where
you
we
can
can
do
overlap.
packaging within that, but if those are four,
Well, that's right, but I was trying to answer your question earlier, Dave. If, depending on how many people are there, you gotta picture how many people you might want around a tripod that's got some note taker, or however we're putting these ideas up, that you don't want throngs of people, right? So you don't want 50 people, so it kind of
Was
depends how
kind of
many
actually
people.
my question
So you're trying to get more
to
groups?
Sharon.
More
Like, we're
groups.
gonna be their good stewards, but we are lay people. Like, how do you?
We've definitely actively used or incorporated committee members in tabling. So, so when we break out into smaller groups, had a very successful session in New Orleans recently where committee members, each one sort of was assigned to a table. And then we broke, the participants into different tables, and they helped to facilitate. We had provided prompting questions, so we had questions for these different
Cool.
topics. And that
It'll
started and we had maps, so we had, maps, we had resource maps, maps of the area, and the facilitators, the committee members helped facilitate the tabling sessions, and they were great, because you know your community best.
So given
yeah,
this.
Great conversations
So
happen.
given these topics and where we are, do you foresee us breaking up into groups? And, what would you think of as an ideal size group? You mentioned a table, that's about 10 or 12 people.
Max.
Right? If we have 100 people, you don't want 25 per se.
No, you need to keep it, 8 to 12 maximum per table. It depends on the tables that we have, the facility, et cetera.
And it would be okay if we had 4 topic areas and we had 100 people, we could have 2 tables that are doing each topic, so that's one way to do it.
All right, how many of you are going to be there? How many
Up to either.
non-lay people will be there?
Well, probably between 3 and 4 of us, from Time Bond, and hopefully Christine can attend.
I'm in
and
there.
any
Karen,
other
you're gonna be
town
there.
staff, town
Heck yeah,
staff.
Karen.
Karen will be there, so.
And Karen will be there,
Yeah.
right, so, that's right, that's 3 to 5, so.
Okay, I just,
Yeah.
I can't imagine getting too unruly, but like.
Well, we definitely will help, lead the facilitation of the events and guide people, direct people. I've kind of served as MC, sort of, here's kind of the overview of what we're gonna do, how we're gonna run it, and then I have helpers who are taking notes and running around, changing materials and
I
things
have,
like that. So we have a lot of people
a
helping.
vision of,
Yeah.
maybe we'll have a little I'm joking, a little hat for the committee members or something. Like, this is a, like, outside a town meeting, this is an unusual privilege. Like, I can't think of a ton of times that people come together, and town meeting can be really, like, kind of controversial and stuff. Like, this is a unique opportunity to,
It is, and it really
we're not gonna squander it,
It
is
gets
what
you
I'm saying.
directly,
Yeah.
you know, face to face with
Yes.
community members, and it's worked great.
So we need to be prepared for more people than your four can handle. I'm just thinking logistically. right?
Yeah, that's what I was asking, yeah. Like, we're
So-
gonna all have to
But
put
within
on our
each of those
big
four,
pants on.
there's room for a lot of individual subtopics.
Right, so you-
Are we thinking about having people sign up?
In advance, I was just gonna say that.
Or are we just gonna throw it open and say anybody can come on that day?
Like when we went to that housing thing right after one of
about
our
both?
first meetings, it
Here-
was just people showed up. Remember,
Yeah,
at the
it can,
cultural center.
that can kind of work both ways, you know, like if you have people register in advance, you know, it may discourage some from, like, just deciding that day, for example. I've had good luck with just, like, you know,
Have
just,
people show up.
here's, you know, save the date, like, get that out early, that may already even be out. Just, you know, save the date announcements, getting the word out early, often, and repeat, you know, and then just leave it wide open for who can attend. I know, like, you're tabling the virtual option, but it does give people sort of another avenue if they can't drive, or they can't get childcare, or whatever the situation is, so,
Guess, you know, we're all gonna probably have to put our, have some coffee that morning and bring our good vibes, and like, because clearly, you know, it's
Refreshments
not,
or
it's not, it was why I was asking how many of you come. Clearly, this is team ball with Tigenbon, and I think we can do it, you know, we're this far into having civil discussions about hard things, we can do it.
All shown an ability to make it up as we go along. And that's pretty much how most of these events work
Yeah,
out, so.
I think a good energy around it, like, you know, maybe we can finalize the agenda, but like, having us be, you know, the lead with the community piece of it, it'd be good.
we'll
Yeah.
provide, you know, a little bit of training, you know, train the
Yeah.
trainer, and,
Yeah.
I
Cool.
mean, you're all, you know, you have lives where you're in the public, view quite a bit, so I think you'll all do great, and whoever can participate.
Do you think there's any kind of, well, would it be an issue if people, we have these two the dates, and then we have a virtual meeting at some point? Do you think people will not come in person to participate virtually instead? Do you think we'd be diminishing? I mean, we could always set a later date at a later time, a virtual meeting at a later time after we see, I'm just asking as far as, you know, oh, it might rain, I'll stay home and sit at the computer versus.
That sounds terrible.
Pardon?
Yeah.
I said that sounds terrible, but like the option, like I would rather go see people.
I
That's just
kind
me.
of get the sense of, like, once we publicize the dates, it'd be interesting to see, you know, if 5 people say, hey, I gotta be off Cape that day, can I participate virtually? Then maybe we'll be like motivated to figure it out. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe you do hold off on that for now, but I don't think there's a detriment to having that option, but, you know, people, I think after having, like, been isolated for so long, I have found that people really are excited to be back in person again, and doing something live and in person, like, has worked really well,
So how many would be too few if they showed up? And how many would be too many? I mean, sort of what, like, if 150 people come, are we gonna
That's
be
okay.
happy
It's
or
okay.
sad?
We'll figure it out, right?
150 is okay, 20 is not great.
So that was, see, he was going to answer, that's good.
Yeah, that actually happened recently to us, and we had to just completely switch gears, like, we had a packed room. So it was like, okay, let's not do XYZ because there isn't gonna be enough room for
Probably be a
people to do
good
it,
problem
so,
to have, you know.
yeah, it'd be, yeah.
A real good problem.
So,
Have we reserved a room,
Yes, we have.
the multi-purpose room?
The multipurpose room in the community center and then the library in the
Sweet.
cultural center.
We
That's
kind
the
of
commu-
thought that was a
Yeah.
nice space for the first one. It's
I
not
don't think-
linear, but the
Okay.
end of March in the cultural center library, Christine knew that was available.
Okay.
That's a nice space.
So what
Good
would you
light.
do with it being too large to break out?
Yeah, no, I just,
Keep them all together?
Oh, that can break out in there. You could be
Well,
filming the halls and stuff over there.
Well, if we have the
So-
whole community center, there are 2 or
Yeah.
3 big spaces, including the
Well, just, yeah,
basketball
I'm just
court.
curious what you mentioned you had a recent example where they were too
Yeah.
large.
well, it wasn't too large. It was just that we had to pivot to not having so many sort of like tabling because the room was very full.
Right.
So what we did was we literally just asked people to get up and form a line. And this was a sort of a broad visioning event. So we had maps that are laid out on tables with people with sticky notes. And they were patient, took 10 or 15 minutes, and people lined up and they
Cool.
put down, you went to the different stations, they used the sticky notes, and we got through that. And so, just couldn't really do as much tabling because it was just too many
Couldn't do as
people.
much
But,
interaction.
I mean,
right.
would
But we-
just be flexible, you know?
The one that you talked about that went really well recently in Orleans, I think it was that involving any sort of like solutioning or ideas from the community around like some of these problems, or was it more just kind of visioning and topics and?
It was visioning and topics, you know, but really kind of high-level visioning. But we did have maps of the downtown area because they have like one,
Yeah.
you know, major downtown area so we had some additional materials focused around that. But we kind of broke it into sort of different topics, like transportation and land use, and we had a few different themes, and they were asked questions. So there are a lot of opportunities for people to write comments, you know, or add sticky notes on things, get up and move around, and then we had facilitators at tables, and we had some prompting questions, and the facilitators, you know, just once people got started talking, there were a lot of good cross conversations going, and got a lot of input, you know, for the plan. So,
So,
yeah.
we've given you some of our ideas. What else do you need to pull this together in a month and a half?
Well, I think the next step for us is to come back with, you know, a little more meat on the bones of perhaps some prompting questions. We can certainly have some maps available, you know, for next time.
Well,
that you can
next
take a
time
look
is
at.
awful close to that first date.
No, it's
Well, it's early,
20-something days
early
apart,
March,
3 weeks
um,
apart, 3-4 weeks apart.
Okay?
you know, we should, and we'll have a draft agenda, so we'll have a draft agenda, some prompting questions, some draft maps.
So we can work with you in the next session to finalize that
Absolutely.
list of
Absolutely,
things.
yes. That's what we're here to do, is to
Okay.
help get all of that put together.
And it
Thanks to
sounds like-
Christine for getting the facilities
Yes,
arranged.
thank you, it was
Yep.
huge. It was
Yep.
my
Yep.
personal phobia, so thank
And
you
then-
for
and then
finding us the rooms.
Getting the word out now
Thank
is
you.
is the
Yeah, yeah,
next
yeah.
step. That's really important, is starting to get the message out that these are happening, you know, where and when, and to do that in multiple ways. So through social media, paper, posting, you know, all of that. So we need to talk about that as well and help you with some.
I think from like the website, we've kind of discussed the plan there.
Mhm.
The cards, we talked about those today in terms of putting that.
We haven't finished those.
Correct. Putting that in the paper. I think, was there,
Actually, what probably needs to be in the paper is more about these sessions than the survey.
well, could you do this
When I
with,
talked to Tim, in
Maybe
addition to having this,
Yes, yes.
this information, hopefully
Next.
get a little
blurb?
article
Yeah.
about.
I will bear my mantle of being the socials lady, which is how you feel. I will do it. I put it on all the social media, which is good.
Yeah, yeah.
For whatever reason, it gets the word out.
Is our thought in terms of the structure of this thing that, so there'd be an initial presentation, sort of overview, then break into groups, and then do they come back together again at the end?
You know, or having the tabling sessions and then coming back to report
back.
out. That's, yeah. that's
Barbara,
generally
you were about to say something?
That's the whole agenda.
No, I just want to make sure that since we're running out of time, on F, we need to talk about what we were doing with all of the above, other than putting it in the Chronicle as far as redistributing it? Are we making posters with it? What are we doing with all of the above?
I think Mary was going to finalize and take off the planning board part of it.
Right.
And I believe the phone number was going to stay, but we were going to edit that to go to the planning department. And we were going, and Joyce, you might know the answer to this. The survey link, the QR code on the back end, can that get changed just to go to the planning website?
No.
It cannot, okay.
Probably not this QR code. This QR code?
Yeah, I didn't know if it could get changed post.
I am not the tech of it, but having lived through it with Erica and
We might need to
and
do a
our
new-
QR codes, remember, we've been down this with this
I
QR
could
code.
create another one that will take it directly to the planning committee page.
Because our
if
fear,
that's
Joyce,
what you'd
before you
like.
showed up
Yeah,
was
no, yeah.
that if this was out there
Yeah,
and the survey was shut,
it will be.
could they still get
Yes.
to?
I think you should probably make your own QR code
Or,
to the website.
that's what we said.
Yeah.
Cool.
And
This could stay static.
Yeah.
to
Perfect.
respond to Brian, there really are two objectives in a lot of the promotional material we need out there. We need to definitely, as Sharon said, advertise frequently about the workshops, just to get those greater numbers
Right.
about that participation. But prior to that, the other objective is to bring up those numbers about the survey, so we can have adequate data to take to the workshops as far as community feedback. So
Agreed.
how we need to do that, we need to really put an emphasis on the survey because we're running out of time,
Absolutely.
so that then it can carry over to really promoting. It goes from just now announcing about the workshops and then promoting the
Having
survey
data
now.
to talk about.
What's our
Yes.
response number now?
It's close to 1,000.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah.
It's close to 1,000, but we need everybody's opinion.
With the chair's permission, I think there was an item, you were talking earlier, and I arrived late, and Christine mentioned that you were discussing the closure, like the date for closing the survey, so,
That,
Like the-
Christine and I had committed to that, right? Let me give you the date.
That's
We- it is, it's pretty close, 23rd.
but I believe the committee was talking about keeping it open
Yeah.
until March, and is a
You
issue
okay
with
with that? So here, I mean, it's 7 o'clock, I don't wanna like
March 15th, Joyce.
March 15th?
That's what we said last time, that's why I'm.
Well, there was
We
this.
do have some concern
Yeah.
relative to the open space and recreation plan, because we were on a very tight time schedule for the housing production plan, the open space and rec. But the open space and rec has to have a
Yeah.
survey
So,
as part of the state requirements, and.
Separately,
so,
correct.
Separately.
to be a little, I've had to be a little bit, definitive about this because of that, and I'm okay with that, and we'll have to kind of fall in line, is that we're close to 1,000 people on the survey data, so the input is statistically pretty strong. Always, we need everybody's opinion. So I think you're right, Mary, in this, any promotional material is really kind of promoting the committee and then now moving towards the workshops, because the turnaround on closing the survey is pretty tight. That said, we're gonna leave it open so that if someone finds our survey, they're able to fill it out, but the promotion, Karen and I agreed on that we were gonna stop promoting the survey itself on the 23rd of February,
Right.
to allow for our colleagues in open space and rec
To be able to
do
promote
their
theirs.
part. So we want everyone's opinion, but we're gonna stop promoting it on the 23rd, even if it's technically open.
So
I
when are
think
we
it
gonna
would be-
close it officially then? I mean,
March 15th, right?
that's
I know,
what we had talked about last time.
Is that soon enough, Christine, for the open space plan?
It doesn't, so.
I think March, closer to March, the beginning of March would be more ideal.
But it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be closed, like for you guys to promote the rec.
Cor-
Yeah.
Okay. We just wanted to be clear on dates because when we're referencing surveys to the public, we just wanted to make sure
Correct.
there wasn't
Correct. So
survey
we're gonna-
fatigue and then survey
LPC is gonna
confusion,
take a
so-
graceful exit, even though if somebody still technically finds the survey that they're able to fill it out.
Right.
I think that's a middle of the road
that-
approach.
Yeah, is that doable?
Yes,
So,
Okay.
so
and
uh,
that
I-
would,
To address the concerns down here, I hear you, but the precision and the reproduction and the sort of accuracy of the survey data, like, is gonna be hard to tangle with.
And I clearly hear
Yeah.
all the reasoning behind that. It just concerns me, and 1,000 responses, you
Yeah.
know, I just have this nagging feeling it's not truly a
Oh, it's
good
not, yeah.
representation, and to really have a final push somehow to get those numbers to represent those areas, like you said, that East Harwich was represented, I think 70%. had
No,
come from East Harwich.
we're better now, and I guess I would
Is
say,
it
you know,
more
the
uniform?
survey's like only one piece of it. Let's encourage the people to come to the workshops.
That's
Like,
Which is-
the process has to keep going on.
Again, because that's what the promotion is about, the process, which you had
Correct.
mentioned, and that's where the emphasis can be.
So
But
I think we've got our topics.
Yes,
If you, and it just, you want to do this, but if we really cared about getting viewpoints, it would be almost fun to eventually sort of share the findings and then say to people, if you didn't respond and you have something you want to say, it's almost like the New York Times at the bottom. You could have somebody write in and say, I think you should use.
This is why I
this
would
flower
argue that it
sapphire."
doesn't need to be,
That's
closed.
true.
It's
Yeah,
just
and you
a
can-
change,
yeah,
it's a change in emphasis so that we
That's
can
fine.
allow,
Yeah, 'cause-
Christine and
Because I think a lot of
Brad
people don't
to get
start with
their
really
part
knowing
done.
what they think.
Workshop is a form of the write-ins.
Right.
Hold on, David was gonna say
Oh,
something,
just,
and then
it's just gonna
Sharon.
add to what was just said. 1,000, in my opinion, is not great. I think it should be more, but I don't think it's going to be. Even if we make a last push and get up to 1,200. I think we've got a decent input. I think we should take it and move on.
Right.
And say, people, you've got other ways of doing things. I think we should have done better than 1,000, but we didn't.
Well, it's not done yet.
So,
It's still fine.
I like the aspect that the workshops simply can be an extension
yes,
of.
that's the way, that's the sin.
We're still widely open for input. This is just kind of narrowing us to a little bit, what are we talking about at the workshops?
I fully understand.
Yes.
Guys, we're 10 minutes over, so I want to make sure we're
We go home.
doing a terrible job with time management, but
And just a couple of
fired.
really, like,
Thanks.
housekeeping
Moving on
things
to the
that are
second
actually
topic.
kind of important related to the open space and rec plan. Yes, they do need to do their own survey. It's going to be open for a short period of time, I think, what, a few weeks probably, or a month
At least
maybe?
4 weeks.
4
We are
weeks. And,
supportive of it.
and we want to have that data available
Yes,
for
yes.
the workshops
Great
as
point.
well. So,
Yes.
our open space, staff person has asked, like, if we're going to have open space as a specific topic, I mean, if it's rolled into a sort of more general nature, I think it can happen at both of the workshops, but if it was gonna be, like, specifically a topic, that it be the later of the two, but
I would
I
push
think,
back on that a little bit because in that survey data, which I know it's not necessarily everything you need to hit the state marker for the open space, there is a lot asked about open space and recreation to at least start with
right, but they.
that we purposely included.
They do need to check the boxes, I mean, technically have, have some more specific
Yes.
questions asked. And they
Yes.
also probably need to have their own workshop as well, so there probably will be a separate open space workshop focused more on stakeholders, people that are specifically interested in that topic. So that will probably happen a little bit, like, more in April.
I think so,
April-ish.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
I'm-
we're supportive. It's and yes.
Well, I think the additional topics, I think it also gives a little more variety for people who may not have been able to attend the other
Yeah,
two
totally,
workshops.
totally,
And so it lends
totally.
to some
It's true. It's true.
wider participation,
It's
hopefully.
right.
So-
cool.
All right.
Can we get a little motion to?
Before you do it,
Jesus.
before you do, I have just a quick announcement that I just want to acknowledge that Margot Fenn, our committee member, is going to be given an award
Oh.
What?
on the 19th of February by the Harwich Democratic Town Committee, our annual community service award.
Wow.
Well deserved. Well deserved.
And if you want to attend, it's going to be at the old meeting house.
Cool.
South Meeting House.
Cool.
It starts at 8:30 with sort of a social hour and then a program at Carolyn, I think, and Julian's here and our state senators and reps will be there.
Cool, amazing.
Fun event if you want to come.
Awesome.
Congratulations. Well
David,
deserved.
David, can I get a motion?
A motion and a second.
Can I get a motion? Can I get a second?
Oh, yes.
Bye.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned. Thank you so much, Karen. Sorry we took so long.